Hello, my name is Devin, and today I will be focusing on debate number 4. Specifically, I will be rebutting the argument that Saudi Arabia should continue to receive support from the United States. I believe that supporting a country that is violating human rights and killing innocent people is morally wrong and makes us just as guilty. There are numerous reasons as to why the United States should not continue to support Saudi Arabia with weapons and other military help, a few of which I'm about to mention. The civil war in Yemen has been going on for years, and in 2015, Saudi Arabia entered their war in an attempt to stop the Iran-allied Houthi rebels from gaining power. This has been very unsuccessful, and at least 60,000 Yemenis have died in the war. The United States has been complicit to war crimes being committed. The United States trains the Royal Saudi Air Force, and around 100 American military personnel advise and assist the coalition war effort. The planes and bombs are American. American mechanics service and repair the jets. American technicians upgrade the software and technology. The pilots are trained by the U.S. Air Force, and American military officials provide intelligence and tactical advice to Saudi commanders. In 2017, the United States announced a $750 million program on how to carry out airstrikes, and in the same year, authorized the sale of over $510 million in precision-guided munitions to Saudi Arabia. This is putting the United States in a dangerous position to be accused of war crimes because the U.S. is actively assisting with and sitting by while we know our weapons and our military training is being used to commit war crimes against Yemen. The United States is deeply invested in the efforts for Saudi Arabia to defeat the Houthi rebels in Yemen. And as human rights abuses and war crimes come to light, the U.S. will be in too deep to deny their involvement. I believe the U.S. is looking the other way while a brutal war occurs simply because of a hatred for Iran, and blindly supporting other countries because of a mutual dislike of Iran is wrong on many levels. By supplying Saudi Arabia with weapons and military help, we are actively working against other U.S. efforts against terrorism. In early 2019, American-made weapons that the U.S. supplied to Saudi Arabia made their way into the hands of al-Qaeda-linked fighters, hardline Salafi militias, Iranian-backed rebels, and other factions waging war in Yemen. The weapons were also used in a series of Saudi coalition attacks that killed many innocent civilians and a lot of children. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates used the weapons as a form of currency to buy militias and influence politics. This transfer of weapons was in violation of the agreements made with the United States, showing that Saudi Arabia is no longer responsible enough to continue receiving such sophisticated weapons and military help. If we continue to supply Saudi Arabia with weapons, we are directly supporting the Saudi coalition's war and allowing the continuation of human rights abuses in Yemen. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are breaking international humanitarian and human rights laws, committing violent acts against innocent people, and directly supplying terrorists that the United States fights in the war on terrorism. As of May 2019, there was more than $129 billion in active foreign military sales between Saudi Arabia and the United States. As stated by President Trump, they have spent $400 billion in the U.S. over the last several years. The United States is supplying immense amounts of weapons to these countries, and this year President Trump had an $8.1 billion arms sales with Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan that the House and Senate voted to block. So Trump vetoed this decision, leading to the Saudi Arabia False Emergencies Act, a bill that is meant to protect congressional oversight of sales. Another law recently introduced was the Saudi Arabia Accountability and Yemen Act of 2019, which suspends the arms sales of certain products such as bombs, rockets, aircrafts, and certain ammunition. Although the attempt was made to make a change, the only real way to act with integrity during one of the most disturbing humanitarian global crises is if the United States wants to truly help the abuse of human rights and the rise of terrorism in the Middle East. The sale of weapons to Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates needs to stop. Supporting a country's decision to disobey laws of humanity strictly for economical gain makes supporting the country just as guilty. To wrap up, I strongly believe the United States needs to stop all military support to Saudi Arabia, including the sales of weapons, because of the human rights abuses and bombings on Yemen. The United States has sat by long enough while we provide all the means necessary for Yemen to continue to be destroyed by Saudi Arabia in an unsuccessful war against the Houthis and Iran. We have allowed the sales of military weapons to Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan for economical gain and maintained economical allies with these countries, regardless of their abuse of their surrounding Middle Eastern countries, such as Yemen. If the morality of supplying weapons to countries that are currently abusing human rights and committing war crimes isn't enough, the transfer of American military weapons from Saudi Arabia hands to Al-Qaeda, Salafi militias, and Iran-backed rebels should be. Since the 2001 terrorist attacks, the United States has been at war with terrorism. By knowingly supplying weapons to groups that are transferring them to the same terrorists that we're at war with, we're doing a disservice to the American military, the war on terrorism, and all efforts to disarm and disband terrorists in the Middle East. The economic gain is no longer enough to support the argument that we should continue to supply Saudi Arabia with weapons. It is time to shut it down. The crime is at the hands of the United States for as long as we continue to supply the means for war against Yemen. Thank you.